All right, welcome into episode number 3 of the Ryan and Megan podcast. We are Ryan and Megan, two traveling physical therapists who've been traveling since 2020, and now we live a little bit different lifestyle. We kind of live a hybrid lifestyle is the way we like to call it. So we do travel with our family part of the year, and then the other part of the year we're here at our house. And then what makes us unique is the fact that we are traveling with our two daughters. We have an 18-month-old and a less than 1 week old baby that's in Megan's arms.
Less than 1 week old. It's real up in here, people.
Yes. So we'll see how this podcast goes. Today we're discussing, how to start now as a travel healthcare professional. So let's go ahead and get into it.
Before we head into it, people, please smash whatever like button there is and all the 5 stars there are. Okay. It just helps us along a little bit.
Yeah. Wherever you listen to podcasts, please consider leaving us a review and put some stars out there for us. That just helps our podcasts be seen by other travel healthcare professionals so we can get the word out and we can help more people.
Yeah. I think we got it on all listening platforms, YouTube's, wherever you want to watch. So let's get into how to take action steps now.
Yeah, because a lot of times we have travelers come up to us and they are asking, I haven't started travel yet, but where do I start? How do I start? What do I do? And so today we want to give you some action steps to really kind of take over and say, hey, do these things, and it'll start leading you down the path to become a travel therapist or a travel nurse.
Yeah. So step 1 is just to start doing your research, which if you're listening to this podcast, you're doing already.
Yes.
So props to you.
If you're looking at our content, so on our website, watching these videos, you're starting, and that's where you kind of need to be, is start doing your research. So that means read articles, read blogs, watch videos, follow influencers. Yep, you have to read to learn. Not all the time. You can watch videos like this one. Follow influencers. That's always a big one too. There's a lot more resources out there now of influencers, people who are traveling and are willing to share that with you. So make sure get you a few on Instagram. We all seem to live there on Instagram. Mm-hmm. There's a few on YouTube, but follow some influencers and start doing your research. Start digging into what is this travel therapy lifestyle about, and do you feel like it's something you would want to do?
Yes. And then while you're doing your research, write down any questions that you might have. Sometimes there's nitty-gritty aspects of travel, and that can leave you with some questions. Lainey agrees. So write those down and then start seeking out the answers. And this comes back to what we were saying last week about how, it's scarier when you don't really know what your questions are. So identify them, because then you can start tackling them and take away the boogeyman aspect of it all.
Yeah. Needless to say, when you start researching, there's going to be a billion questions that come to your mind and can kind of freeze you in fear as you're thinking about them. Just write them down. That gets them out of your mind, but it keeps them somewhere safe. And then slowly go through those and seek the answers. And if you get to the end of that list and your end of your research and you still have questions, then our advice is to reach out to a fellow traveler. So whether that be us, leaving us a comment, send us an email, a direct message, maybe look at doing one of our one-on-one mentorship calls, whatever you need for your time in life, or talk to your friends that maybe are travel nurses or travel therapists and ask them those specific questions and get a good answer from them. And so I think that's a great order to kind of go through to just get your foot in the door, get you started down a path of learning about this lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. Well said, Ryan. Well said. So the next thing beyond doing your research is actually getting connected with some recruiters. And this is kind of a unique aspect where we recommend getting connected with recruiters before your companies. So it's easier to do research on a travel company and look at the pros and cons that they put out there about what they can offer travelers But what we've really found is that a good recruiter can make your travel experience really amazing. So prioritizing the actual recruiter that you're going to be working with over the company and what benefits they might offer, because a lot of them are similar anyway, is one of our big tips.
Yeah, so many times we have travel therapists come up to us and say, what is the best company to work for? I've looked on these different company websites. Go for finding a recommended recruiter from a fellow traveler, a friend that has worked with a recruiter and they had a good experience with, or get recommended recruiters from us. As always, just send us an email, send us a direct message. Down in the description of the YouTube video or the podcast, there will be a little link there that you can fill out. And we're always willing to share the recruiters we personally work with and trust. But that's who you want to get, because that will make or break your experience as a traveler, to have a good recruiter. And then once you gel well with that recruiter, then learn more about their company and what they offer. A lot of them offer a lot of the same things. There are some companies that are better than others, but they are very, very similar. And even if you had the best company, but a bad recruiter, you'll have a horrible time.
Yeah, I think the biggest difference between companies that you'll find is the size of the company, meaning, how many jobs they have to pull from, probably their benefits package as far as, how good is that going to be, how much are you going to pay for it. And then some of them have like little extra perks that they do offer for traveling with them. So those are usually, I would say, the biggest differences between companies that we've found.
Right. And very secondary for us.
Yeah.
But then that's also why we say work with 2 to 3 recruiters. And when we say...
Meaning from different companies.
Yes. When we say that, we mean from different companies. So you're going to be working with 2 or 3 travel companies, which feels really weird to permanent staff therapists or nurses when you first enter the travel world, because you're used to your allegiance being to one company. But in travel, that's not the case. You can work with multiple companies, multiple recruiters, and the recruiters know that you're going to be working with multiple recruiters. When you have 2 to 3 recruiters, that opens your job availability, and then also opens your travel company perks. So if you have one travel company that has a special perk, then you might side towards them, or you might just have a travel company that's a little bigger, so they have more options of jobs, but your smaller company maybe can pay you more. So it just kind of depends, but you want to get 2 to 3 recruiters working with you, and then go from there. If for some reason you have a recruiter that is very against you working with other travel companies or other recruiters, that is a red flag to us for a bad recruiter. Not that you have to be rude or inconsiderate when you're talking to your recruiters, because they're a part of your team. They're trying to find you a job. You want to be open with them, because they're going to be open with you about, hey, I'm thinking about doing this job with this other company. The communication has to be clear. But they should never say like, no, you can't work with that other travel company.
And another thing about working with multiple recruiters is actually that you don't have to keep working with multiple recruiters necessarily if you find one that you really like working with and really gel with. We definitely have ones that we really enjoy working with. But even with that said, when we come back home, sometimes that recruiter doesn't have anything near our home. So that's where it becomes really important to have other recruiters that we do have a relationship with and like working with as well to help us find a job. So,
yeah, I think we set our recruiters as like a tiered system, and we work with quite a few recruiters, about 4 at a time. And we kind of have a tiered system where we have our favorites, and then we have the second tier, third tier, and then we kind of have the backup team. And we do approach it that way. So we always go to those first recruiters that we love, and we say, hey, find us a job. If they come back to us and they're honest with us and they're like, hey, we're not finding what you're wanting, but we'll keep looking, then we go down to our next group and we say, hey, okay, recruiter from company B, please go ahead and this is what we're looking for. And then if that doesn't work, we go ahead and go down the line. I think where it can be overwhelming sometimes, especially if you're new, is when you unleash all the recruiters at once. And that's definitely something you can do if you're good with juggling that stuff. Again, communication will be key, but maybe take that tiered approach.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
And kind of and incrementally let each recruiter out looking for what you're wanting. And that kind of helps out. But really, for today, talking on this episode, we really want to say just go ahead and get established with a recruiter. Whether you're a student and you're just finishing up, or you're thinking about travel and you're not fully committed, I would go ahead and get established with one or two recruiters, just so you have someone that you can ask questions to, because the recruiters are usually very knowledgeable, if you get a good one, on how this travel thing works, what you need to do for tax home stuff. And so they can be a really great resource to bounce off and ask questions as you're looking into travel. And just because you get set up with the recruiter does not mean you're committed to traveling. Right. We have a ton of people who get connected with our recruiters personally. Our recruiters talk to them over the phone. And then sometimes they're like, this travel thing I don't think's for me. And our recruiters are like, hey, that's okay. I'm glad I could help out and kind of make that clear for you. And there is no hard feelings. So you are not committing to a life of travel just to get established with a recruiter. But it's definitely one of those steps you can take to get started now.
Yeah, and you're not even like interviewing for a job with a recruiting company. Like that's probably what it feels like to a lot of perm staff is you're getting connected with a company, and so you're kind of starting the interview process, but that's not really, you don't interview with recruiting companies.
No, it's more like a travel agent. So if you've ever taken a vacation through a travel agent, you hire a travel agent to find you those vacations. It's almost like the same thing, but these people are your travel recruiters, and they're finding you jobs. So they want to work with you. They want to get you placed because that's how they make money. And so it's more of that relationship. And then, yes, they will hire you on officially as a W-2 employee for that company if you take a contract with them. But it's not like you have to interview and then hope they hire you. That's not the case. The interview you want to worry about is when you interview with the facility to try to get that job, not with the travel company, but through the travel company.
Right.
So go ahead and get established with that. As always, we don't mind sharing ours with you. Just hit us up on the email.
Is ryanandmeganO'Rear@gmail.com. You can just email us, let us know you're interested in finding some good recruiters, and we would be happy to share those with you.
Or click the link down in the description below, and it'll take you directly to a form on our website where we can learn a little bit more about you so we can get you paired up with the recruiter we think would work best with you.
So the next thing to take action with is to learn about your tax home rules. I'll probably let Ryan explain this one, but it is kind of one of the bigger boogeyman type ones. And it is very important to figure out if you want to take advantage of large travel benefits. So
yeah, the tax home thing, I think this is the third episode we've mentioned tax homes. So you're kind of getting the idea of why it's important. And it's important to look into now before you start traveling, because you want to have an idea of what's going on, because there's tax implications tied to it. And so really you want to start looking into tax homes. Watch our video about tax homes where we dive a little deeper. But you want to know, like, how do I maintain a tax home? And so maintaining a tax home really is you got to have two of three things. And I actually wrote them down so I would get them correct for
right.
you. So you have to have two of these three things. The first one is have regular business or employment in that area, so that your tax home is where you make a majority of your money. So we have worked here in the St. Louis area. We were tax fully income here, so this would be our tax home. It's not necessarily where your permanent residence is. It's where you make the most money. So if I would drive 2 hours west every day or 3 hours and go to Kansas City, Missouri, and I work there and then I commute those 2 to 3 hours back home, technically my tax home is in Kansas City because that's where I'm making most of my taxed income, and my permanent residence is over here in St. Louis. So sometimes that can get confusing, and that's a good way to delineate it, but it's where you earn your income. And
usually that's the same general area as where your house is for most people.
For most people.
And again, tax home is not necessarily a singular location either. It's kind of like a general area as well. Correct?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
It's a general geographic area. It crosses state lines, so it's not even like in the state. We here at St. Louis, we're real close to the Illinois border, but our kind of tax home generally goes over into that area. So anyway, that's one. Two is you have to maintain a physical residence in your tax home area where you last worked and are financially responsible for that resident's upkeep or your fair share, meaning rent or shared expenses, while you're away from home. So basically, you need to maintain a physical residence in a place where you're paying for rent back in your tax home, you're paying for a mortgage, utilities, those type of things. So you have to maintain a home. And then the third one is you have not abandoned your tax home. So meaning you plan on returning to your tax home and spending about 30 days a year in that area. And it does not have to be 30 consecutive days. You can string those together throughout the year, but it just shows a pattern of you returning back to your tax home. So you just need 3 of those. A lot of times travelers...
No, you need 2.
Oh, yeah. You just need 2 of the 3. So a lot of times travelers will fall into the 2 and 3, where they maintain a physical residence, meaning they pay rent somewhere in their tax home or they have a house mortgage, and then they don't abandon their home. They come back for those 30 days. And if you have those 2, then you have a tax home. You are maintaining a tax home.
Mm-hmm. Something kind of unique about our situation is that is what we did when we did not own a home here in St. Louis, and we were sort of technically full-time traveling. We were out of school and we're just, traveling as much as we wanted. So we were maintaining 2 and 3, paying rent, and then coming back home at least 30 days a year. But once we've had a family and had some roots down in St. Louis, we've been back here to work because we spend time here when we have babies. So now that's kind of reinforced. I mean, buying a house reinforces your tax home, but also having a job that is taxed in your tax home reinforces it.
Working PRN in your tax home, working for me a travel contract that's fully taxed. I do not take any tax-free stipends when we're here in our tax home. I'm not allowed to, but that's just solidifying our tax home here.
Right.
And so these are some of the tax rules you need to start kind of looking into. So you figure out, where is my tax home?
How are you going to maintain it?
How am I going to maintain it? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just establishing a tax home before you head out. So a lot of you are probably students, student therapists, student nurses who are away to college. And really your tax home is probably where your parents' residence was, unless you've moved all of your driver license, your car registration, all that over. Or you're, a lot of times it's back where your parents were, even if you start working kind of a part-time job. And so this can be kind of a gray area. That's where we would say we're not tax professionals, so consult a tax professional. And we're going to give you a resource here at the end. But you need to start figuring out, is my tax home around where my college is? Have I worked enough here? Will I be moving somewhere else? Because there's a little caveat in there where if you get married, if you've been unemployed for a little while, if you're kind of moving and changing, well, if you're moving to Atlanta, Georgia, and you start working there, then your tax home becomes that. Mm-hmm. But if you are a therapist or nurse who's already been working for a while, you've been in the field, then wherever you've been working, that is your tax home. Mm-hmm. most of the time. So you got to kind of figure out what is your tax home, where is it at?
Yeah, but when you're a student, you kind of have the chance to kind of decide where you want your tax home to be, just because some of those things are so gray. And we would say consult traveltax.com is the resource that's really, really good with working with travelers and knows and are also tax professionals.
Yeah, go ahead and write this down, traveltax.com, and look on their frequently asked questions page, or just type into Google, traveltax.com, FAQS. That page I go to constantly. It is a really great resource. Every question you're going to think of for this tax stuff is on there, and they explain it, and they are tax professionals, and so they can give you a little bit better advice. But yeah, what Megan was saying was, if you're a student, you do fall into this gray area where you're kind of starting out on your life, and so you can kind of pick where your tax home is, but depending where you're going to set roots down for your tax home, then everything has to switch there. So all your mail has to go there, your car registration, your insurance is in that address, all driver license, all that switches to there.
Yeah, and then also if you have an established tax home, your tax home can move. So I guess that's something to think about if you want to be part-time and you want to go set your base somewhere else. You can figure out how to do that. And also it could unintentionally move if you decide to stay working in one place for longer than 12 months within a 24-month period?
Correct. Yes. You do not want to work a travel contract for greater than 12 months in a 24-month rolling period. That will switch your tax home to there. And so I know some of those beautiful California, by the beach contracts, you're like, I'm just going to stay here forever and just take constant contracts. You don't want to go over 12 months in a 24-month period because it will switch your tax home to there.
Or it could, we're talking like it's a hard and fast rule. We aren't tax professionals, so you could, again, consult traveltax.com. But it's generally something that would maybe throw up some red flags for that. Yeah.
You don't want red flags with the IRS for sure. But if you're someone who's been working as a nurse or a therapist for a while and you're kind of like, well, I'd like to change my tax home, then Travel Tax has on there that it usually takes around 4 months. Again, there's no hard line. This is all a gray area, but around 4 months of working fully taxed in an area. So say you want to move to Atlanta, Georgia and make that your tax home. You would move there. You'd get a job. You need to at least work 4 months or more to kind of establish that as your tax home.
Yeah.
Okay, enough about taxes. That stuff is important, but not that much fun.
But I do want to say one more thing about Travel Tax, though, is they have been great with being willing to answer questions over email, phone call. They're just really, really sweet people, easy to work with. So, yes.
Yeah. And they're not a sponsor of the show. They're just a really good resource that we love.
Yes.
All right. The next thing that you can do to help you start as a travel therapist now is go watch our video on the 10 must-ask questions, interview questions. And we do have a PDF on our website. You can find it in our Instagram links for those interview questions. And they're just 10 interview questions that you are going to ask when you are interviewing for a job. So the stage of the process with this would be you already have a recruiter, you're working for a travel company, they found you that job that you like, and you are now submitting your resume and applying for it. And they gave your recruiter a call back and they said, hey, we'd like to do an interview. So the hospital, the skilled nursing facility, the home health company, whatever it may be, wants to interview you. Mm-hmm. And this interview is a little different than how interviews work as a permanent employee.
The interview as a traveler is very different from being a permanent employee. Usually when you do an interview, you've gotten submitted, they say, hey, we want to interview you. It's going to mostly consist of you asking the facility questions about, their staffing and their patient population and kind of finding out if this location is going to be a good fit for you, not necessarily you being a good fit for them. Now, that being said, Ryan has had a couple very challenging interviews as a traveler, and they do still want to know about you and they want to make sure that, you will be compatible with them. But the majority of what's going on is just kind of figuring out if you want to take that contract. So that's why having our list of 10 questions to ask can be really helpful and important, because this is your litmus test to find out if this is going to be a good location for you to work.
Yeah, so the interview process is very kind of flipped, where usually as a permanent employee, the hospital is interviewing you because they are trying to figure out, are you a good fit for them? But for this, with the travel contract, the traveler is interviewing the facility. The facility is needing people. They're needing nurses. They're needing therapists to help cover their patient workload. So they want you there, and they're going to ask you questions to make sure you're qualified, but they are not too picky for the most part.
Fun fact, I don't know if since recently I've interviewed for my own stuff, but in like the first 2 years of us traveling, I never took an interview because we were traveling as a pair, and usually the facilities knew that we were both coming, and they always called Ryan first for some reason, and they were like, yeah, we'll just go ahead and take your wife.
Yeah, we want this guy named Ryan, so if you have a wife, I guess we'll bring her along. Yeah, it was kind of funny.
I think you just have some good skills, I guess.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
I appreciate it.
But yeah, so that might feel a little different at first interviewing them, but use those 10 questions so you find out a lot about them. So you find out what support staff you're going to have there. And then after the interview, you can then decide, do I want to take a contract here? Or if you're getting bad vibes and you feel like you're not going to be supported there very well, then you can say, nope, I do not want to take that job. Recruiter, please keep looking for me.
Well, that's a good tip to know, because if you go into the first interview thinking that you're going to have, a lot of questions thrown your way, and then you forget to ask the facility important questions, you might end up going to a place that just isn't a great fit for you, that you're not able to enjoy. Take advantage of our little PDF thing that we have online, and it's on Instagram. Yep. And then let's roll into the next topic that you should make sure you check out.
So you want to think about your priorities. So go ahead and write down your priorities. And when we talk priorities, we're talking about three main things that you're looking for in a job when you start your job search with your travel recruiter. And that is your pay, your location, and your setting. So the pay is, of course, how much do you want to earn per week? And that pay that you're getting offered from your travel recruiter, for the most part, is the net pay. So your take-home pay.
That's a good question to ask. Sometimes or places have started listing it differently. That's how it was when we started, though. It's your take-home pay. So double check that number.
Yeah, some of the travel companies, you're right. Some of the travel companies recently have started switching to showing you gross pay, because that's going to be a way bigger number, because that's before taxes are all out. So make sure you ask. But if it's your weekly net take-home pay, then that is money in your pocket at the end of each week for 40 hours. Mm-hmm. And so pay, what pay do you want?
Yes. And then location. This means we're talking like where in the country do you want to work? And if you have a couple specific states that you're like, I know I only want to work here, this is another tip that we want to make sure to share to kind of prepare yourself for travel, is go ahead and start on those licenses or a license if you're really a stickler on location. So if it's your top priority and you're like, this is the only place I'm going to go, you might have to wait a little bit longer for a job, but also it'll be really good if you have that license already, so that as soon as you see the job, you can get submitted and you can tell them, you don't have to wait for me at all. I have the license and I'll be there as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when we first started out, a lot of times our travel recruiters would tell us, get about 2 or 3 different state licenses so you can travel to 2 or 3 states and it'd be pretty quick. That has helped with the PT Compact or any other discipline compact, because you are able to get those states pretty quickly. But if they're outside the compact, not a part of it, then you might want to consider going ahead and getting those licenses. The other priority is our setting. So the setting would be like, where are you going to work? Do you want to work acute hospital, outpatient, skilled nursing facility?
Said acute hospital.
No. Inpatient, outpatient,
Yeah.
Skilled nursing facility, home health, you name the setting, but where do you feel comfortable? And do you feel comfortable working in a bunch of different areas? Now, what we tell everyone is, if you are particular about one of those 3, so say you want to make the most money, then you're going to have to be pretty flexible on the setting, so where you're going to work, and the location, where you're going to go. If you're flexible on 2, then you can get that 1. This is what we see a lot of times with new travelers, is they're very particular on what location they want to go to. Everyone wants to go to Colorado. I get it. It's beautiful. There's a lot of great hiking there. But you got to understand, a lot of people, travelers and non-travelers, want to live in Colorado. So there might not be that many travel jobs there. So if you are a stickler on, I want to be in the Colorado location, then you're going to have to be really flexible with pay and with your setting that you're going to work in. So it kind of works together. Mm-hmm. We do like to say too, go for 2, pick your 2 priorities. I would say for us is probably pay and location, and we're a little bit more flexible on setting. We've worked in multiple settings. And
I will say,
figure out that hierarchy.
I will say it's good to have a preference. We always say you have to be flexible as a traveler, especially if you are very specific on one of the 3 priorities. But I will say, on the flip side of that, it is good to have a preference, because it gives your recruiters some sort of structure to kind of work by, to find you something that you're more likely to take and that you will enjoy. So I I know like when we first started traveling, we were basically like, we can go anywhere and we just want to travel. And sometimes it was hard to like narrow down which jobs like we should be shown just because we weren't very direct on what we wanted. So find that good balance, make sure you kind of understand you're going to have some flexibility, but go ahead and figure out what your preferences are.
Definitely well said. And then the last one, I would say is a bonus, more directed towards students. So if you are a current student and you're finishing up school, maybe clinicals is all you have left, what we would say is while you're still in school, diversify your clinicals. And what we mean is diversify your settings. So try to work in multiple different, whether it's hospital floors, if you're a nurse, ICU, emergency room, try to diversify those clinicals. If you're a therapist like us, we tried to get in home health. We try to do a clinical and skilled nursing facility, inpatient, outpatient. Try to get as many as you can so you get exposure to those so you can see, do I like this? Am I somewhat comfortable in it? And so you just have a little bit of experience in there. So then when a travel job comes up in that awesome location for awesome pay, you have the flexibility and now the skill level to go ahead and try a different setting.
Yeah, I think it'll just give you more confidence to have more jobs open to you. So more confidence to take those jobs that might be in a really cool setting or location. But I will also say, like, we jumped into a setting that I'd never worked in. I think you'd never worked in.
I had done a little bit, and I would say I had a little more confidence going into, this was our first travel contract. It was the one in Montana, and what they offered was for me to do home health and for you to do a mix. So that meant like outpatient mostly, but inpatient also. Mm-hmm. And I had worked a tiny bit on my clinical in a rural mix setting where I did a little bit of home health. And so that was our first contract. I was trying to be pretty flexible. It was in a beautiful area. And so I was like, yeah, I've done it. I've seen it. I feel somewhat confident in it. And then that was just all I needed to have the confidence to go do it. Now, I'm a pretty confident person, so kind of feel out how you feel.
But I will say this is another perk of travel is that you can get exposure to other settings. So if you've already been working and you want to get into travel, but you've been working like your whole entire career of like 20 years in one setting or something, I'm sure it's intimidating to think about entering into another setting. And that's something that you can mention in your interview and just say, hey, I really would love to take this job and work with you. What's the onboarding process going to look like? And just kind of figure out, if you can get some good training and not such an accelerated onboarding process for that one contract. Because once you've got, one contract down in a new setting, now you have that like back in your tool belt.
Definitely. So, and ask if there's other therapists there that can help support you and teach you. That's the big thing. So you don't want to go somewhere in a new setting and you're the only physical therapist there or occupational therapist or speech language pathologist. It's really nice to have coworkers there that you can kind of lean on and say, yeah, I've worked 20 years in outpatient. This is my first time in a skilled nursing facility. I know what I'm doing, but I'm a little rusty, and you can learn from them. And then, like you said, you get that toolbox, you get that tool in your toolbox. Oh, it's great because then you can go to a lot of different places.
Yeah. So I think those are all of the main things that we wanted to touch on. If you're wanting to take action steps towards traveling, these are the things to consider doing. So with that, we're going to remind you, if you need those recruiter recs, shoot us an email. Ryan and Megan O'Rear at gmail.com. We will gladly accept your emails. And then we're going to share a little bit about having a brand new baby.
Yeah, what we've been up to. And what we've been up to is having a very, very fresh new baby.
Yes.
How many days old?
5.
Yeah, 5. We're a little sleep deprived. Math is not our strong suit. I'm actually really surprised we're podcasting this week.
I know.
Because
I'm impressed.
I think our days and nights are actually thrown off because I feel a little better during the night, and then the mornings have been rough.
They've been very, very rough. But everything went really well.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about kind of Lainey's story because it's been a roller coaster, guys, on her coming into our life.
Yeah, well, her story start is just kind of funny because we weren't trying to have another kid yet. And I took a pregnancy test just to be safe, left it on the counter because it was negative. I was going to come back and throw it away and just double check. And then Ryan went to the bathroom in between before I was able to throw away the test, and it had turned positive. And I did not know. So he came back out of the bathroom, thought I was like trying to tell him something cool. And so he just sat there and waited for me to say something about it.
I waited like 30 minutes. I thought she was like going to reveal a cake to me. I don't know what I thought, but I was like, oh man, she must be really mulling this over. I know, another kid, 2 under 2. Are we ready for 2 kids? I don't even know if I'm ready for 2 kids. All this was going through my mind.
I can't imagine what your mind was doing.
Yeah. And so then we're about to go to bed, and Megan's like packing up and ready to like head
I'm like,
to bed.
I'm going to bed. And he's like, you are? And I'm like, yeah, I'm tired. It's past 11 o'clock. And so you tell me by just saying, well, are you ready to have 2 kids? And my like stomach dropped and my jaw dropped and my eyes got wide.
That whole time I thought you knew. I thought she knew.
I did not know.
She did not. Her eyes got real big and she's like, what? Went to the bathroom, saw the positive test, and she was like, and then those thoughts that I've been having for the past 30 minutes hit her. And
that's the wildest way to learn that you're pregnant.
I feel like it's very rare for the man, the husband, to find out that, we're pregnant as a couple or you're pregnant before, the woman.
It's kind of fun if you ever want to set that up and just don't look at the test. But that was crazy. So we were obviously very excited, but just kind of shocked. Mm-hmm. And then fast forward to our 20-week appointment, we came home for, I don't know, something. Were we in Texas and then we came home?
When we found out, we were still in Joplin, Missouri. So we were on a 3-month contract. And then we went to Texas on a 3-month contract while you were pregnant, but early stages.
Yep.
Yes, we came home, I believe, while still in Texas, just for the doctor's appointment.
Yep, for the doctor's appointment. I think also Reagan's birthday was in there somewhere. And had our 20-week scan. We were super excited to learn what we were going to have. And it was our first time seeing the baby. It's the anatomy scan, so they're checking everything out and making sure she looks good. And we found out we were having a girl, and Ryan did. And then we went in for our doctor to kind of review things with us. And she ended up telling us that they found some things on the ultrasound that made it very likely that Lainey was either going to pass away during pregnancy or she was going to have some sort of genetic anomaly that could be like a
chromosomal abnormality, Down syndrome, or one of the many others.
Yeah. So it was basically the likelihood is Down syndrome, which she may be able to survive, or 2 others, which are more likely, and those are not survivable. And she was in the 3rd percentile for growth. And we were basically given that news like that was our sealed fate, but we still had to take a genetic test, which was going to take about 2 weeks to come back. And so that crushed us.
Yeah, that was a very trying moment. You just feel very helpless as a parent. Mm-hmm. Like there's really nothing we can do. And here we were so excited just to find out if it's a boy or a girl. Mm-hmm. And now we were just thinking, are we going to have our sweet girl or are we about to mourn? And I know there's a lot of families out there that have went through this, have had miscarriages, have, the list is endless. And so our hearts just break for you. It's really tough. It's like hard to explain. There was a lot of tears. We had a lot of support from our family. Mm-hmm. And really all we could do as Christians, as that's our faith, is just kind of lean into God and ask for his strength and ask for his prayers. And so really when there's nowhere else to go, we started praying. And so we prayed for healing. Mm-hmm. We prayed for the growth. of Lainey, because again, she's in the 3rd percentile for weight. And that the genetic tests come back. And then we got our family around us and we asked them to please pray for us. And they were great and they were very supportive in a trying time.
Prayed for strength to be able to get through whatever was going to come our way, because there was no real direction. I mean, we had been told our fate is most likely this, but we also wanted to hope for healing, but we also knew, the Lord isn't bound by what we want. He has plans that are greater than ours. And so it really showed us that we were not in control. I mean, you're never really in control like you think that you are.
For any pregnancy too, specifically.
Yeah. So all of that we say just to display how much of a blessing and a miracle having a healthy baby here is.
Very
Our
much
minds
so.
were in such a different place at that 20-week scan. Like, how are we
Right.
even going to get through this?
We were like trying to prepare ourselves for maybe mourning the loss of our daughter, and then probably you happen to give birth, later on, which would have been very, very tough.
And now,
Trying to prepare ourselves for maybe we do have a child with special needs or Down syndrome, and like that's a big toll on parents, and like being prepared to be parents for a special needs child. There was just so much going on, and so we had the genetic test done. It was a long 2 weeks, and the genetic test came back negative
for everything.
And they tested for everything. So no Down syndrome, no the other genetic hallmarkers that show, probably going to be fatal. But her weight was still very, very much down. So I think she went up to maybe 6 to 11% at that time in 2 weeks. And then it was just, will she be big enough? And so again, we were just on our knees praying, family praying around us. And it was amazing to see the Lord answer our prayers and give us strength through all that too, like in our soul.
And peace.
And peace. And saying, Lord, this is in your hands. Let your name be glorified. And we slowly start seeing her percentile go up 3%, 6%, 11%, 33%. And that's still pretty small.
And then she gets into the 50s, which is like where Reagan was born at.
Yes.
So she was born at 7 pounds, 3 ounces, which is 3 pounds off from less.
3 ounces off from Reagan.
Yes. 3
She was
ounces
in the
off from
52nd percentile for her weight and size.
And so we just want to share it because we want to say, praise God. Thank you so much for the miracle of life, healing Lainey, helping her grow. And I never want to forget that, it's all, it's all glory to the Lord for what he's done.
Yes. Kids are such a blessing and a scary thing too. Because it is truly a miracle for each little kiddo coming into this life, and it's such a blessing. If you're not a parent out there yet, I
do it.
Do it if you can, if you're able, and when you have kids, it'll be really great.
Yeah. Yep. So we are really blessed that she's here, and it has been so much fun to see Reagan be a big sister. She's done such a good job. She's adapted so well. She's still getting used to it, obviously. But she just loves Lainey so much. So lots of hugs and kisses, lots of holding her. She's so happy every morning when she wakes up. She loves when she sees the baby. So that has been just so much fun.
Well, let's go ahead and hop into our next segment. What's been good, what's been poopy, a fan favorite out there. But let me go ahead and also say, if you're interested in learning more about kind of travel therapy, travel healthcare, the central hub for all of our content is our website, ryanandmeganorear.com. You can find links down below in the description to our website, but you're going to find articles there. You're going to find one-on-one mentorship, videos, vlogs, all kinds of stuff in there. Our newsletter, don't forget our newsletter comes out multiple times a week, just to kind of let you not miss a lot of our content. And so be sure to check out our website. It's a great resource to get started. So Megan, I'll start with you. What has been good?
Yikes. What has been good is, I don't know how to pick anything other than having another daughter. I can move again without being out of breath, and I can bend over and stuff. And I have a new daughter, and being like a girl mom is so much fun. And finding matching outfits and things like that. So that's what's good.
What's been poopy?
What's been poopy is the heat wave.
Oh, that was mine.
Got to take it. I know the heat wave is like hitting the whole country, but I bet you it's worse here. That's all I'm saying. What was it today?
It's pretty bad out. It's like 98 degrees out. But then
Yeah, but
with the
guess
humidity, the heat index is like 114.
Insane. I looked up what the humidity percentage was one day and it was like 88%. Also, should I leave the bathroom thing for you? Will that be a poopy?
No.
No. Okay. Also, because of the weather, it literally started like raining in one of the rooms in our house. I don't know why, but the temperature, like air movement in our hall bathroom, I guess isn't good. And there's some place where like warm air comes in and then we've got our AC, pumping in the cool air. Literally the entire ceiling had condensation and drops coming off of it. And I'm like, what other state can you live in where it will rain inside your home?
Yeah,
Because it's happening here.
When you walk outside, it's literally like you're in a swimming pool. You're just pushing through the air.
It's insane.
Oh.
Anyway, Ryan, what's poopy?
What's been poopy? I would say it's a blessing to have kids, but we have hopped into that sleep, sleep regression. Or Reagan, our 1.5-year-old, has been great. She's been sleeping very well, which has been a blessing. Lainey here thinks that during the night it's daytime, so she's been up more during night. So we're trying to take shifts, and every new parent goes through this with a newborn. But man, when you have a lack of sleep, your mind does crazy things.
My gosh.
You can't function right. You're putting your socks on before you go shower. It's all kinds of crazy. So that's been a little bit poopy, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. We'll get through it. Everything's a phase with kids.
It does feel kind of like a time like warp zone where nothing feels normal.
Yeah, you can't tell your days from your nights. I don't know what day today is. It's been crazy.
All right, what's good?
What's been good? New daughter. But other than that, since we got our new refrigerator in our kitchen, we got to move the other refrigerator out to my garage for a beer fridge. And I got to load up.
You stocked that up.
I stocked it up. I went a little bit crazy at the Walmart. And we have Sody Pop in there for our road sodies. We got fizzy water if you're a fizzy water fan. We have beer, of course, and other adult beverages.
And he got himself some Rifle coffee. It's his favorite.
Black Rifle iced coffee.
Black Rifle iced coffee. Yeah, he says, I got myself some Black Rifle iced coffee. And I said, not for me? And he said, nope, not for you.
I'm treating myself. But it kind of got embarrassing. We'd have people over, to see little Lainey or just any time. And they'd get here and we'd offer them a drink. And we'd be like, well, we have tap water, whole milk, or...
or formula.
Yeah, we had nothing to drink. It was like water and milk at this household. But we have drinks now. So if you come over, we'll get to partake.
Yeah. All right, babe.
All right, that is the end of our episode. Thank you all for watching. Please consider hitting that like button, subscribing if you're watching here on YouTube. If you're listening to the podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts, consider leaving us a review. And until next time, see ya.